Bore da, good morning and welcome to this hybrid meeting of Planning Committee on Tuesday the 22nd of August 2023. I am Councillor Jeff Jones and I will be chairing this meeting of Planning Committee. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting will be recorded. Can I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate? Please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of this meeting. Members, if you wish to speak or ask a question, please raise your electronic hand on Teams or physical hand in person. I will now move on to agenda item 1, Chair's announcements. I can confirm I have no announcements to make. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interests. Are there any declarations of interest?
I see no indication, Chair.
Thank you, Chloe. Agenda item 3 is requests for site visits. Are there any members wishing to suggest a site visit on the applications presented today or for any other matter? Please also let me know if you wish to call for a site visit at any point in the meeting.
I currently see no indications, Chair.
Now we move on to section A of the agenda, which is matters for decision. Agenda item 4. The first. Oh, right. Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
Councillor Bowen.
Yeah, Nathan Goldip-John's trying to join, but he's having problems. Can someone try and sort it out for him, please?
Councillor Bowen, I can see that Councillor Goldip-John is in the meeting.
Oh, he is he?
Yes.
He's got no screen or nothing to show it. Oh, he's here now. He just.
Yes, he's here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we move on to section A of the agenda, which is matters for decision. Agenda item 4. The first application we look at today is application number P2023-0265, land at Foundry Road. The report is set out on pages 5 to 34, and this application is recommended for approval. I would now like to ask the planning officers to take us through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I say this is planning application P2023-0265, the construction of 15 light industrial commercial units on land to the north of Old Foundry Road, Pontardawe. The application site is located at Foundry Road, and as you can see from the location plan and images on the screen here, with the canal located to the rear. The site is in a predominantly commercial industrial estate area, and you will see the indication of the coloured plan on the right-hand side here of the land uses, and all are kind of in the mauve purpley colour are existing industrial estate type development, and the red areas there are residential. This is the layout of the site. There are 15 units proposed on the site. The reason this application is before committee today is because this is a departure to the development plan. The site is allocated for residential development within the local development plan. A bit of background to that is that there was an existing live planning permission at the time when the local development plan was put forward. So those are types of applications with extant consents are brought forward as land bank sites within the local development plan. Subsequently, further application for residential development was submitted, including pre-application discussions. That came to light. There were a number of constraints and issues that had changed over time since that original planning application came forward. There were issues as set out in the report in relation to air quality within the area, and there were also constraints in terms of noise and flood risk that changed over time. It was considered then that residential development, due to the restrictions on the site and the constraints that would have to be put in place, would be precluded and would obviously make the site unviable. And some of the options to try and address some of those concerns would be quite contrived in terms of design and layout. Those are all set out as within the report. So you can see here the site access is coming in off Old Foundry Road, and you've got 3 blocks of units. Again, it's another layout, and as you can see on the frontage, there's an area at the frontage there with the drainage features in, and that would, as set out in the report, require a separate SARB's consent. These are typical elevations of the buildings. And these are some cross sections that show you the difference in levels in the canal located at the rear, the existing embankment, and obviously the slight changes in levels in the site to allow for the development to take place. So these are some images of the site as it presently stands. So you can see it's quite overgrown from its previous condition. It used to be an old foundry site, and the buildings were taken away some time ago. The existing entrance in of Foundry Road is the residential development to the left-hand side of the site. And there's some other images then of the overgrown nature of the site as it currently stands. These are the rear of the site. And you can see the canal in that image there. Again, some photographs from the rear. So in terms of the main constraints and issues raised in the application, we've had no objections. The application was advertised on site and in the press as a departure. Issues in terms of land contamination and air quality are dealt with via conditions. You will note that there are conditions on the application that currently restrict the development of B1 uses, which are the less intensive uses, subject to the applicant undertaking further noise assessments and air quality assessments to prove that any other uses would be acceptable in terms of impacts on residential property. So we're recommending approval of this application, subject to all the conditions that are set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. I will now ask local ward members if they wish to come in at this point.
I see no indications, Chair.
Thank you, Chloe. I will now take questions from the members of the committee. Members, do you have any questions to ask the officers? Councillor Sarah Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So I noticed in the report on page 8, under police design out crime, they mentioned that they wanted the active travel route to be designed out. And I realise this doesn't really affect the recommendation, but I'm just curious why they've asked for that, really. And you know, because obviously active travel is something that we're quite focused on at the moment.
Chris, thank you.
Yeah, the Secure by Design advisor obviously gives advice in terms of how to protect the site from potential crime and antisocial behaviour. And this is a kind of tension that we have usually with these issues. I mean, the best design layout for Secure by Design is a cul-de-sac, because you basically, if anyone goes in there and causes problems, you can just block the entrance and stop them getting out. Permeability is obviously a bit of an issue when you're trying to stop people, because there's various entrances and ways out. But obviously we have to balance that with the need for accessibility and active travel. And clearly the introduction of 15 business units, we would want it to be permeable in nature and have access to active travel, because that's what we're promoting in terms of sustainability, but also the spin-off benefits that having employment so close to Pontardawe town centre would benefit the shops and retailers in the town centre. So we try and address some of those issues, but obviously some of those are contradictory to the direction of travel in terms of sustainability and in terms of making sure that people can access other facilities in the area. So that's the reason why they look at it just with their kind of security hat on. We look at it looking at the wide range of issues that we need to look at on a planning application and all the material considerations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
So thanks. It's just, obviously, I was looking at the plans and everything. The active travel part isn't actually within the compound itself. It's sort of coming down from the side to access it. So when they mentioned that it should be designed out, I assumed they were talking about existing stuff as well, and it seemed a bit incongruent with general approaches these days.
Yeah, yes, I agree, and obviously, I think what they're talking about is kind of fencing off the site securely so that access can't be provided. But obviously, as I said, that is contrary to what we're trying to do in terms of encourage permeability to allow people to go to the site through active travel means. So as I said, it's not something that we've put forward as part of the application. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Thomas? Well,
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Rosalind Davis?
Yes, regarding the Canal and River Trust, I know that this part was flooded many years ago because the bank gave way. So you will be contacting them on a regular basis to make sure that flooding will not occur, or make sure that everything is in place for it not to flood.
Yes, so there are conditions on there in relation to, as you see, there's a section there on flooding. Obviously, residential development has been granted previously, and that is a lot more sensitive to flood risk. But as you can see from the sections, the embankment that's adjacent to the canal is being retained. And obviously, there are conditions and controls in place to ensure that the buildings themselves would be flood resilient. And the SARBs features themselves would address any drainage from the site. So we don't believe that there will be any significant issue from that.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any more questions?
Diolch.
Councillor Patterson in the chamber.
Thank you very much, Chair. The local members are not here today. Are we to read into that they have no objections, they haven't been in contact and said they're not sort of happy with it, but maybe circumstances have happened that they can't be here today?
No, we've had no indication.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
As said, the only reason this application is before committee because it is a departure to an allocation within the plan. As you see from the report, we've had no objections from members of the public or any observations from the local members.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Eve Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I am the local member of Portadower. I'm happy for this to go ahead, to give employment to the people of Portadower and also to help then the village itself. So I have no issue or no problem with this at all. Just to let you know that I am here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Are there any more questions? Oh, okay, thank you. Now moving on to the recommendation, which starts at the bottom of page 23 of the report. And again, this application is stated as for approval. Could I have a proposer and a seconder to consider the recommendation?
I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you.
Just to confirm, Councillor Patterson, a second in the chamber.
Sorry, yes,
All right,
I
okay.
will second.
Thank you.
Chloe.
Thank you.
Chloe, could you please ask each member if they have been present for the whole of this item and how they wish to vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Tim Bowen, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I've been present on and for the application.
Thank you. Councillor Heath Davis, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I have, and it's a yes from me. I'm for it.
Thank you. Councillor Rosalind Davis, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present for the whole item and I vote in favour of the recommendation. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Councillor Goldup John, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present for the whole item and I vote in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Cathy James, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I've been present for the whole item and I vote in favour of the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. And Chair, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I have been present and I vote for the approval of the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Jordan, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I can confirm I've been present throughout the item and happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Just to confirm, we've had apologies from Councillor Keogh. Councillor Rydion-Maisen, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, to be present for the whole item and I'll vote for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Suzanne Patterson, have you been present and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I have been present throughout and I will vote for the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Phil Rogers, have you been present and how do you wish to vote?
I can confirm I've been present for the whole debate and I'm in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Sarah Thomas, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present for the whole item and I support the officer recommendations.
Thank you. So I can confirm, Chair, that that item has been approved.
Thank you, Chloe. The next application is detailed as agenda item 5 of the agenda, which is application number P2023-0480, 6 Cardinal Road. The report is set out on pages 35 to 42, and this application is recommended for approval. I would now like to ask the planning officers to take us through the report. Chris?
Good, Chair. This is planning application P2023-0480 for proposed raised decking area to the rear of a property with associated privacy screening at 6 Cardinal Road, Skewin, Neath. Members should be aware that this application is here today as the applicant is a member of the authority. It's Councillor Ann-Harriet Aubrey, and that is the only reason that this application is here today. So the application is, as I said, is for a raised decking area to the rear. The plan is pretty faint, so I hope you can see that. Is that the location is identified there on Cardinal Road. You can see the length of the rear gardens. I put this in so that you can. Oh, it is changing. Sorry, I thought it wasn't changing. Changed quicker on mine. You can see then the property. And the linear nature of the street, and obviously the rear lane and the properties at the rear and the length of the rear gardens there, so it's a clearer plan for you to see the location. You'll see on the left-hand side, you've got the existing and proposed rear elevations of the property. You can see it's a split level, and you can see that the raised decking projects out from the rear below, just above the basement level, and you can obviously see the screening that's proposed for either side of that would prevent overlooking to the adjoining properties on either side. You've got some images here of the property. So this one is looking off to the side. So you can see the area there at the rear. And that's the other side of the property with a similar roofed version. I'm not going to comment on the design benefits of that today. So this is the rear of the property here with the window and central location, and the as you can see from the level of the decking would go at that level here, similar in level to the one that's next door. Again, that's one from further out, so you can see the context in terms of how that is seen in terms of the properties either side. As I said, there will be 1.8 metre high screening on either side to screen it, so there would be no direct overlook in either side, but there's obviously views down the garden. And as you can see from the topography and the layout of the street, sort of all the properties, as typical of Welsh streets, they all sort of overlook each other's gardens due to the changes in levels, but the immediate sections directly behind the properties will be protected from overlooking with the screening. And as we got a shot here looking back down the gardens, you can obviously see the length of the garden, and obviously that the distances then in terms of overlooking, they're well in excess of any overlooking issues to the properties at the rear. So we've had no objections. Say there's a number of conditions there just to make sure that the screening is to be retained. There's a condition there, as usual, biodiversity enhancements, where they're going to we've got to maintain those on the property. I think there's bird boxes they're going to propose. As I said, it's the only reason it's here is as the local member is the applicant, and we're recommending approval subject to those conditions that are all set out within the report on pages 40 and 41. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. I will now ask the local ward members if they wish to come in at this point.
I see no indication from ward members, Chair.
Thank you, Chloe. I will now take questions from members of the committee. Members, do you have any questions to ask the officers? Councillor Padson.
Not so much a question, Chair, more a statement, really. I just would like anybody who's watching the planning committee back to realise that it's normal for councillors' applications to come, but that there are 37 conditions. So this is just because it's a councillor doesn't mean that it's not gone through a rigorous process in the planning, and the officers have done a tremendous job with all the conditions. And as Chris has said earlier, alluded, it could very well possibly look a lot better at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Padson. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I've got to be honest, I'm just curious, really. It's got no impact at all on my decision, but it was mentioned in the report that there was going to be a fence on the other side as well, or it was a condition that it was required. And having looked at the photos, I mean, it's really clear that people on the other side, there wouldn't be any overlooking because they've got that structure there already. So I was just curious what the reason for having the privacy fence on both sides is, out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, if I share the, if I go back to the photographs, if I can.
I think page 9 shows it best, really.
Maybe I'll
That helps.
come in slowly.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that obviously there's not going to be any overlooking on that because there's already sort of a structure in the way from that structure, if that makes sense. So I was just curious what the logic behind asking for that condition was.
Yeah, the probably the next photo is probably the best one. As you can see, the deck in there would come out from the rear wing of the property, and obviously there's potential for direct overlooking then between the fence, because obviously that deck in that you can see that's got the cover on it is set further off. So I think just to protect privacy, and it's sometimes about the perception of overlooking a lot more than the overlooking itself, because obviously because it's a decked area, there's more use of it, and then people have, you know, in our lovely balmy summer evenings that we're having at the moment, everyone's out having barbecues and having parties and stuff. So sometimes just the perception of someone standing at a higher level looking down upon the garden. I can understand your point, but obviously we can't maintain what people have got adjacent to them on other people's properties, and this just has that level of protection. As I said, it still allows the amenity and the views out from the decking, but usually it's standard that probably on both sides we require the screening to be put in place, because it gives that additional level of protection to amenity to the adjoining properties. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. Councillor Thomas. Okay.
Thank you. That answered it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Now moving on to the recommendation, which starts on page 40 of the report. And again, this application is stated as for approval. Could I have a proposer and a seconder to consider the recommendation?
I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Rogers. Thank you, Councillor Patson. Oh, sorry. Councillor Thomas, did you have your hand up?
I was just offering to propose or second. It's fine.
Oh, okay, thank you. Chloe, could you please ask each member if they have been present for the whole of this item and how they wish to vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Tim Bowen, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I've been present for the whole item and I'm in favour of the application.
Thank you. Councillor Heath Davis, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I've been present, and it's a yes from me. I'm happy to vote to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rosalind Davis, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present for the whole item and I vote in favour of the recommendation. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Councillor Nathan Goldup-John, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present for the whole item and I voted in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Cathy James, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I've been present for the whole item and I vote in favour of the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Chair, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, I've been present and I wish for the approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Jordan, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, can confirm being present throughout the entire item and happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Again, we've received apologies from Councillor Dennis Keogh. Councillor Ridian Mason, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
Yes, Chloe, I've been present for the whole item and I'll vote for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Suzanne Paddison, have you been present and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present throughout and I will vote for the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Phil Rogers, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I've been present, Chloe, and I'm in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Sarah Thomas, have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present for the whole item and I support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. So Chair, I can confirm that application has been approved.
Thank you, Chloe. Now we move on to section B of the agenda, which is matters for information. Agendas items 6, 7 and 8, which detail the appeals determined, appeals received and delegated decisions from the 24th of July 2023 to the 11th of August 2023. As Chair, I can confirm that we note the information contained within these reports. The final item is agenda item 8, which is urgent items. I can confirm we have no urgent items today. There are no further items, so that ends the business for today. Thank you all for attending. Oh, Councillor Patson.
Just make my apologies to Councillor Heath Davies because I said he wasn't at the meeting and I just hadn't seen him. So I make my apologies for that.
Thank you, Councillor Patson.
Chair, no problem. Sorry, Chair. No problem.
Okay. There are no further items, so that ends the business for today. Thank you all for attending.